I did almost run over Bill Clinton. And here we are. I'm on a podcast.
I'm Alex Del Sur with the Rower's Choice Network, and this is another podcast interview, and it's something that I've been actually looking forward to because I know this person, but she doesn't know me. I followed her career because I love rowing, and I love collegiate rowing specifically, and it's in an area that it's near and dear to my heart because you all know that I had a coach named Greg Meyer. He was at Wisco. He talked about Wisco. Then I became an expert about Wisconsin rowing, and I have Bebe Bryans, and man, a journey woman. She's been all over, and we're going to get into that. But Bebe, thank you for being here on today's podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you for that. So we're going to get right into it. I do the same thing every time. I want to know where you were, how old you were, and walk the audience through where you found rowing and when you started rowing.
I was 18 years old. I was walking the halls at University of Southern California as a brand new freshman, lost, of course, looking for a class room that I couldn't find. And this tall man was walking towards me, a little scary looking, but I stopped him and asked him where this classroom was, and he wouldn't tell me until I promised to come out for the first rowing practice because I looked like an athlete and, so I said, okay, yeah, whatever. And he told me where the class was, and it did pique my interest, but I wasn't really sure I was going to do what this man wanted me to do. But my roommate was also thinking about being a coxswain. So we got on the bus and we went down the 10 to the Port of LA in 1975. And he put me in the bow seat of the Varsity 8. And that's how I started rowing. And we were harassed a little bit by the men there, and mainly by their coach. The men were great, but the coach not so much. He didn't really like our presence at the boathouse, but that's how it started. I fell in love on the very first row.
1975. I mean, you're aging yourself a little bit. I'm sorry, but 1975.
I'm old. I'm old.
This is so okay. This is cool. So 1975, you've been in the sport many, many decades. This is cool. So they put you in the Varsity 8 bow seat. I actually don't know your stat. How tall are you?
I'm about 5'10". Depends on who's asking, but it's about 5'10".
That's a tall woman for bow seat in a boat.
Right? Wow. Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. So he put me where I could do the least amount of damage, apparently. Not that helped at all.
I read your bio that you did some pretty competitive swimming. So were you swimming and rowing, or did you let that go at some point?
No, I actually had quit swimming. I quit high-level competitive swimming when I was about 12, and then did like 10 sports in high school when you could still do that. Yeah. And so when I was thinking about walking onto the swim team, but I didn't really like swimming anymore. And so this was just sort of a cool opportunity. And I thought I'd check it out. Then I took a circuitous route through college. But when I went back to college to finally finish, I swam there at San Francisco State. And that was pretty awesome.
So
while I was coaching.
Well, I do know that you were there. So what kind of success did you have in college rowing? Like, did you win a lot of races? Did you have a good experience?
I was in one college rowing race. That was ahead of the harbor about 3 weeks after I'd started rowing. And I was 5 seat in the Varsity 8. And I was in the second 4. And I was also in a wherry. So in that second 4, that was the third race of the morning. And I caught a gigantic boat stopping sideways turning crab about 10 strokes from the finish line. That was my college rowing experience.
And here you are, decades now, a program coach. That's funny. I got to figure out how we got from there to where we are today. So 1975, you go to San Francisco State, you find coaching. What made you want to coach this silly sport called rowing?
Well, when I left USC, I moved back up north. I'm a Bay Area girl, and I love the sport. I didn't like the school that much, but I love the sport. So there was a club in Oakland and that had just started, the Oakland Strokes, that had just sort of broken away from Lake Merritt and started their new thing.
Yeah.
And I just got started with them and started rowing with them. And basically the head coach, Ed Lickus, who is an absolute icon that nobody knows about in women's rowing. He was our coach, and he also was coaching a couple of different high schools out of the Oakland Strokes boathouse. And then they'd come together in the summer and row as a club. And so he wasn't feeling all that well. I got to practice early one day because I was commuting up from the South Bay. And he just asked if I'd take these kids out for practice. Piedmont High School. It was the boys. And I said, well, Ed, I've coached swimming, but I've never, I don't even know how to row myself hardly. It's like, oh, you can do it. You got it. I said, yeah, but I've never driven a motorboat before. It's like, oh, you'll pick it up. It's easy. This is on the Oakland estuary, which at the time was the third largest container ship port in the world. So yes, I took them out. I did not kill them. I did not kill myself. And that is my claim to fame in that first year. Well, I also got the girls. So I had both Piedmont High School programs by the second semester of me learning how to row. He never took them back, so I inherited them. But they loved to row after that. So that's my claim to fame. I didn't kill them or anyone else, and they learned how to love the sport. So that's how I started. That's how I started coaching.
Think about this.
Definitely inventing the wheel. Every single turn of the wheel I invented for myself.
So I like this because, I'm call it snippets. Your claim to fame in rowing was you had a boat stopping sideways crab. Okay. Yeah. And then you move on, you're like, I didn't kill anybody. So right. I'm 2 for 2 right now.
Yeah. And here we are. I'm on a podcast. Who knew?
Here we are. All right. So now we're into, I guess, late 70s, early 80s now. Is that where we are now in your career with this?
Yeah.
With thing?
So I stayed with the Strokes through the 70s, coaching and rowing there. And then in 1980, we started the Pacific, my soon-to-be husband and I, Joe Meese, who was also a coach at the Oakland Strokes. We started the Pacific Rowing Club in San Francisco. Wow. And that was in 1980. So we moved over there and started from scratch, and they're still a thriving program to this day, which is one of my proudest accomplishments, really.
If you could give, let's say, a young man or woman who wants to start a program today, one piece of advice about starting a program, what would that be?
Follow your dream and surround yourself with people who like to work hard.
I think that's what Wisconsin's all about. It's just work hard. Like Greg Meyer, he made me hate rowing for a while, but it was like, you're going to work hard. And he would always say, I promise you, you're going to work harder than any other person in this sport. And it's the truth. We train harder. We put more effort in. And I think that's like the Wisconsin way. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I think that's it.
No, that actually is the Wisconsin way. And I learned so much when I came here from Coach Clark, who's the men's head coach now, that, we have a lot of challenges here that stack on top of each other. And our job is, as the coaches, is to find a way. And that's what we do. And so we also train our athletes to be prepared for anything. So nothing that comes up at a regatta or in training or anything like that is going to throw them, because they know how to be resilient and they know how to just take things in stride and get it done.
You made me think of another question, BeBe. Chris Clark. I've known him for many years, and I know his style. Is it challenging to have, not just for you two, but like for a man and a woman, to be head coach of a program? Is it challenging to work with, get along with, and coordinate with someone like at the collegiate level like that?
Of course.
What are some of the challenges that you may have faced in the past or even face now?
I mean, I say, of course, just because you have two people that are passionate about what they're doing, that their every moment pretty much is consumed with how do we make this better and how do we make it come together.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I decided to come to Wisconsin was because there was a men's program, even though things are a lot more simple when it's just a women's program, the way we were at Michigan State. But I really wanted that holistic feeling of having a big team together, having men and women, and having lightweights and open weights. And really with Coach Clark, we're both pretty consistent. And so we are who we are. We don't try to change each other. We don't try to, to bend the other to our will and vice versa. We support each other. And so we do as much as we can together. And whether or not that happens on the water, we are always supporting each other and hoping the best for each other. Number one, because we want our colleagues to be successful, but also because it's better for the boathouse. When one team is winning and the other team starts winning, it's better for everybody.
Wait, you're really touching on something here. So you've been with the program, 15, 16 years?
17, I think.
Longer than that, right?
20-something. Yeah, 20-something.
So, I know we joked off camera, you're old, but that conversation, what you just said, didn't just happen year one. That's happened over the course of many years.
Yes.
Doing that, right? Like, what was that first year like, if you can remember, of moving into a new program and meeting him and the rest of the kids?
Again, I think I expected it to work. So I came in with that. And I think that's really important, that you have an open mind. I knew that I was coming into a program that hadn't been the coaches hadn't got along all that well. So, I knew there would probably be some resistance there, or some just sort of step back and wait and see. There really wasn't very much of that. It took time for me to learn the ropes, and I appreciated his willingness and his staff's willingness to help me with that and to help our staff with that. So, we don't need to have one-upsmanship. You never do, hopefully. We never have. And not to say everything's perfect, because it's not all the time, but we make it work, and we want to make it work.
I like that. I wrote down want to be successful. I put that in bold. Like,
yep.
You both, not just you two, like your assistant coaches, your boatmen, your athletes. I think it's 13, maybe more NCAA invites in a row for you, right? Like, yeah. It's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know how hard that is. Like being like outside of rowing. Like once I left rowing, I always thought it was obvious. But then you're like, well, wait a minute. No, it's not. It's actually hard. So congrats.
This year, honestly, well, I have to say, this is just overall, the team that we have in place right now has surpassed any and all of my wishes for them and my expectations for them. And so the invite, we earned it, but it's icing on the cake, honestly. I mean, we would have been really sad and disappointed had we not gotten it, but just everything that we went through and that they went through, and the leadership that evolved out of this team, not just the seniors and the captains, they led it, but everybody was on board with what our mission was. And that is rare. I mean, and that's a gift that I'm so proud of them for. And the lucky 13, the cool thing is it's the most back-to-back postseason appearances by any team on campus.
Wow.
You might know that we've got a pretty good basketball team. We just took the crown.
I'm much aware. It's, so one of my questions, which you led me to this, is 13 invites in a row, 17 years with the program. To build a culture is so hard. And today it's even harder. What advice do you have for that coach 2 years in a pandemic era about culture and about building that culture? What using all of your experience, what can you say?
Well, I can say first that I got it wrong to begin with. I came in and I thought, oh, coming from Big Ten to Big Ten, and they want to be successful. And, I missed a lot in that first couple of years that set us back a lot. And so I would say, first of all, meet the team where they are and really find out where that is, because you're coming in and joining them. And so you can try to come in and tell them what's going to happen and then expect them, they're going to shake their head and say, yeah, that sounds good. So you expect them to be on board, but that isn't the case if you don't include them in the process. They need to be part of the process because they are the team, So we're leaders and we're guides, but we're not the team. They're the team. So include them, really get a good feel of the skills that your leaders have. And if they don't have the skills you think they need, help them get them or get them with them. But it truly is a collaboration. And if you think anything other than that, you might have success, you might have some speed, but you'll never be as good as you could be.
That's an interest. It's really interesting you say this, because again, I told you I've interviewed so many people, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's a very female thing to say. And I say that's because men typically are egomaniacs, and they're like, you're doing it my way, and I don't give a crap what you say or do. And I really hope that the future coaches today, because you're not doing this forever, and that the future coaches that take over Wisconsin and take over the other places do exactly that. They meet the team and they join them where they are. They include the athletes in the process, and they find out the leadership skills and cultivate and grow and develop, and not just come in and say, oh, I'm the head coach now, see you guys later.
Well, and I think I'd like to add a little bit to that. First of all, women can't do that as successfully as men. It doesn't work. And that's part of the difference, is that women don't like women coaches to act like men. Men don't like female coaches to act like women. And so, you've got to be true to yourself. You've got to if you're going to be a head coach, you've got to be a confident person. And if you're not confident, you've got to act as if and sell the heck out of it. And being true to yourself is the most important thing. Actually, I think, the paradigm has been the my way or the highway thing. And that's worked very successfully for a long time. But I question that completely. I'm like, how much better would these teams have been had it not been that way? But that's the expectation. And even for women who have had male coaches their whole lives, we struggle with that because, the role they see females play, it's getting better, but it's still there. And, society is what it is. It's not rocket science to see that we haven't progressed all that far. But, there's voices like mine who speak truth to it. And, I think my goal as a female coach is to show that if you're good at what you do, if you do the homework, if you prepare well, if you keep learning and you're consistent, you're honest, and you're kind, you're gonna do well by yourself. You're gonna do well for yourself and for your team.
You said something there. 17 years at a program, being kind, trusting yourself, being true to yourself. I know that you account a lot of your success to support you've had along the way, right?
Absolutely.
Who specifically, if anybody or people, have been there by your side helping you when you said, hey, coach, blah, 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 I got a question, or who can you say has helped me in my career?
Thanks for asking that question. I think, first of all, Tony Johnson.
You're my God, Kevin Sauer, the same.
Yeah. Well, Tony was he was the head coach. The same thing. He was the head coach when I was the women's varsity coach at Georgetown. And that was my first Division I job, right?
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot from him. We're very different. Very, very, very different. And that was really helpful for me because I'd been a head coach, but at a smaller program. And, I didn't have very much experience, and he did. And he was going to do things the way he did things. And so we clashed a little bit. But number one, he's the nicest man I think I've ever met. Two, I still am not in total agreement with everything that he does. But you know what? He taught me how to not have to have everything slotted in. And, he taught me how to be more flexible and more resilient, I guess. And then when I went to Michigan State, Matt Weiss was my assistant, and he then took over the program for many years and took it to much higher heights. He was just a sponge. He wanted that team to be, he had a better vision for that team than anybody else, and still than anybody else. And I could not have dreamed of a better person to go through that building process with, to start a Division I team from scratch. Kudos to him. I'll never forget that. I'll never take any more credit than he gets for what we were able to do at Michigan State.
Wow.
And then here at Wisconsin, I would say every single coach that has been on my staff. We've had just amazing staffs. And the one we have now, really in the whole boathouse, is exceptional. It's exceptional. And it's why I think all three programs are better, at least as good as they've ever been. Again, we might not be the fastest or the strongest as we've ever been, but as far as unity and being a great team, that's where we are. And I think it's in large part to the staff that we have working together.
We had a little bit of a glitch on the internet here.
Oh, sorry.
No. What I'm just going to say is Tony Johnson has been that person for so many of the people that I've interviewed over the last year and a half.
Well, he's old too. He's been around too.
Oh, God, he's old. Yeah. And he knows it too. He knows it. I'll never forget. So he was there at Georgetown when I was rowing at GW. So I'm like 2004 to 2008 at GW. And by the way, that 08 was the fastest Wisco men's team because they
Yes,
won.
it was. Yes, it was.
Oh, and I have a love-hate relationship with all those guys. I can still remember them coming down the course. But so Tony Johnson, he recognized me because I had, after college, gone back to DC and coached. So I was coaching a high school team. And he recognized me, and he was at the tail end of his career. So he was already, semi-retired. And the comfort and the support he gave me coaching a bunch of high school kids was awesome. Every other college coach at TBC would blow us off, and he was right there, helping the kids pick up a boat, telling them to do this and do that. And it was the compassion that I learned from Tony. It's like, You know what? Sure, I want to beat all these guys and I want to win these races. But you know what? It's not about that. It's about supporting and helping the children in their journey. Who cares about the wins? It was wonderful. A wonderful.
He truly is one of the nicest men I've ever met in my life.
I listen, you're preaching here. You're preaching to the choir. All right. So one of my other questions, and I think this is a kind of silly question. You did competitive swimming up till you were 12. You maintained swimming in San Francisco a little bit. Which do you think is harder, competitive swimming or competitive rowing?
Rowing.
Bar none?
Bar none. No, when I swam at San Francisco State. So swimming as a kid, that's different, because I was Olympic track when I was 12. It sucked. I didn't like it. It was, yeah. I was a good swimmer, so there's that. But if you hate it, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So I swam for San Francisco State just on a whim. It was another one of those flyers that actually ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made because it really helped me learn how to be a really good athlete. I was a good physical athlete, but I wasn't a good mental athlete. And I figured some things out that helped me be a 10-time All-American swimmer while I was coaching rowing, getting my degree and master's degree, and married. So, and working. on the side?
I mean, like, I think that I have a busy schedule, but man, I mean, that's because, 24/7, it's 24/7, right?
Well, it wasn't back then.
No,
it wasn't back then.
I don't know. I mean, even like part-time high school coaches, they treat it like it's everything to them, right?
Right. Well, it was a big deal back then. It was a big deal. And those were the days, right? Those were the days when I could do all that stuff and not pass out.
I know, right? You're just exhausted all the time now. So 1975. Now, I'm going to date you here again, but this is another interesting question. 1975 to 2022 coming up, 21. What's your favorite decade of rowing of all time? What was your favorite gaps of years?
That's hard. I don't have favorites really of many things.
Your fondest memories. I mean, was it the 90s? Was it the 80s? Was it, even in the early 2000s as you're developing UW? Like, what was it?
I think it had to probably be the late 90s, doing Georgetown and learning at Georgetown, and then coming to Michigan State and starting that program. And that first year team that we had at Michigan State, they'd had a club team, and they were fairly big team. They were not fast. They were not fast at all. But Matt did his magic and talk and really convinced the athletic department to bring on rowing as the sport they needed to bring on. And so we had all these club kids. We had no recruits. And we took ninth at the NCAAs that year in the 8. These kids had never been in a racing 8 before. And yet they got so much crap from a lot of people at state, thinking, oh, here are these club kids, we're going to do what we need to do to be in compliance, but don't, just do the minimum. And that was the way we were treated until we showed everybody that we deserved to be there. And that was the kids. I remember the very first couple of weeks we were there, once we were practicing, and I put a video on of Georgetown doing steady state. Yeah. And then I put a video on of them doing steady state. And I said, I know you guys you think you're working hard, and you think you've always been working hard, but that was then and this is now. So let's look at that again. And they just looked at the two and they're like, okay, yeah, we got it. And that was the last time I had to tell them. And they got ninth at NCAAs in the 8.
This is fascinating. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is
that's fine.
I'm writing this down, and I highlighted this, like the visual thing that you just said, right? So my first college coach was John Bancari.
Yeah.
The guy, I mean, he's a South Jersey guy like me, so speak the same language. But he said in the podcast interview that launches next week, he said, every sport has a visual or a sound that you say, oh, that's it. Yep. Okay. Like the swish of a basketball, the hit of a golf club. And you just did something and it's the visual. They're like, okay, that is how you do it. And I remember, I'll never forget, he did the same thing to us. Now his visual in 2004 was the 2004 Olympic 8 men's 8. Mm-hmm. He said, that's how you do it right there. And every pimpled faced kid on my team, when we're 18 years old, we're like, got it. Okay. Just like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe O'Brien, like all this, like, that's how you do it. And I like your style. I like that you use that as a form of education.
Well, yeah. I mean, you use whatever you can. I got in the boat with them once at San Diego. We were at the Crew Classic that year, and they just weren't, the rhythm wasn't right. I couldn't talk them into it. And so I had a launch out with me, and I luckily I had somebody in there with me that could also drive, because I'm like, stop, stroke seat, get out. And I got in when I still could, and just rode with them for a while, and showed them what I wanted and showed them what it felt like. And that was another turning point, that sometimes words don't do it.
Yeah, it's rare to have a coach that can jump in the boat right with the athlete and showcase what you want to do. And you touched on something there. I think the best thing any rower could do is row with someone who's far superior. Like the moment you row with someone who's far superior, you realize that's how it's done.
Yep.
Like Bo Hoopman, Wisco guy, row with him. You're like, oh, that's how you do that. Oh, I got it now. Like I got it.
Because you'll never hear him say anything. He'll never ever say anything. Still, but
that's so funny. I'm writing one more thing down. So bear with me here. So the other thing, okay, this is interesting. I'm jumping around. It dawned on me as I was asking this question is, you were at Michigan too, and I forgot you were at Michigan. So my question,
Michigan State.
Oh, there's a difference.
Don't forget the state.
Hey, CJ, edit that out. Okay, I don't want
for your sake, not for mine.
I'll be shunned from Michigan State, but you're a California. I'm going to call you a California chick. You're a California chick. You're North Bay, South.
If you have to.
Got to. That's what you are, right? So for 17 years, DC for a while, Michigan State. What's your favorite place? What's your favorite state? And don't have a cop out and say, "Oh, California," because DC's
That's
beautiful.
not a cop out.
DC and the Potomac is beautiful, and you know it. So, out of all those places, where do you think say, "Oh, I love that. I'll never forget that experience"?
Well, DC is a bad place to be poor, and I wasn't making very much money there, so I had to have a second job. But I had a second job.
Okay.
And I was a bartender at the City Club of Washington, which was like a country club without the country. So yeah. So I loved DC though. I loved everything about it other than the rent. But the fact that the Potomac is epic. It's epically good and it's epically bad. There's all sorts of great stories about the Potomac. Mm-hmm. That's another podcast. But I would say Michigan was not my favorite state to live in. The university was great and my little neighborhood was great. But that's one of the reasons I came to Wisconsin, believe it or not, was that Madison is just awesome. There's something about Madison that's special. It's unique and the lakes are beautiful and the people are great. So I would say I don't have a favorite. Sorry.
How about this?
I like them all. I like them all with Michigan a little bit lower than the other ones.
All right. So then I'm going to rank it for you then. How's this? I'm going to say California 1.
Yes.
DC 2.
Yes.
Wisconsin 3. Michigan 4.
Yeah. I would even say a tie between, well, I'd say DC. I'd say DC too.
Yeah, DC. You were there in such a wild time, not only in the economy, but politics and the growth of the city. Because there, at that era, DC got out of that cocaine and drug pandemic. It was ending, right? And it was just a fun place to be. It was a great place.
I did almost run over Bill Clinton. Actually,
you got to tell me that story.
Yeah, I was going to pick up a recruit at the Georgetown gates, and I was late, a little bit late. It was summertime, super hot. I had a little Jeep Wrangler. I had the top down, and so I cut around a corner, and there's the black Suburbans, which means he's running around somewhere. I'm like, oh crap! So I turn around and I go down another block and try to get around that. I don't know why I thought I could do that, but nope, can't do that. So I took one last go and I turn this corner and there's no Suburbans. So I keep going and I'm heading right for the Georgetown gate and I can see my recruit. And then I see Bill Clinton running at me. And I see the Secret Service guys like this. And, he's running right at me. And so I'm looking at him and he's looking at me. What do you say to the president of the United States? I said, he looked pretty bad. He was running. He looked pretty bad. I said, you make sure you get enough water now. It's really hot out here. And he's like, okay. And he kept running and I just drove off.
I would tell that story at every party, BeBe.
I forgot about it till just now.
That is a cool story. And I'll tell you, and I'm not just promoting DC, but only in DC could you do that. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Only in DC. Oh.
We used to, when he first moved in there, he used to go running around, right? and not really realizing the havoc he was causing. So we'd be out for morning practice and we could see the commute coming into DC, and we could see it backed up all the way across Memorial Bridge because he was running along the river, not really realizing that commute traffic couldn't come in while he was running.
If you
so that's why they built him a track.
If you're the president, I'm going to run wherever the hell I want to run, period.
Well, they built him a track around the White House after that.
That's actually, they probably have one. We just don't know about it. It's underground somewhere. BeBe, I have one last question for you. This is
okay.
This turned out to be a blast. You may not admit this or agree with it, but you were an integral part of the growth of the NCAA. Late 90s, women's rowing, and I'm allowed to give you a lot of credit. So thank you for all that you've done. I think, though, if maybe I'm wrong, but pandemic, colleges closing down, the growth in the 90s and early 2000s, are we still on that trajectory for women's rowing? Have we stalled? If we've stalled, how do we get better?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and that's something that I'm working with some other people on the CRCA. We're on a sustainability committee with the CRCA, and that's not only are we looking at sustainability of how to keep the programs that we have, but how to keep growing the sport. So are we on the same trajectory? Probably not, because there's other options now. And it's still a sport that most athletic directors and most people in athletics don't know much or anything about. And if you know anything about athletic directors, they don't like to have things that they don't know things about. So they can't, if they can ignore us, and I'm not speaking from personal experience, I'm just speaking in general. If you can just sort of ignore a sport and hope they just do their jobs, that's one thing. But when, now we're not as obscure as we used to be. And there's more, especially with the Title IX stuff that's coming out now, finally. It's only been 50 years, but hey, 35, who's counting? I think that's something I'm really interested in pursuing.
Is that the next phase of BeBe's life? Is that the next phase for you? Is spending more time on the written law side of things and the growth of Title IX?
It's something that I'm really interested in and I'm passionate about. So whether it's official or not, I think that's something that I would be I can't see myself not doing. It's sort of a calling, and it has been since the very beginning.
That's beautiful. You just gave me chills. We talk to junior athletes all the time, and we talk to parents specifically. And I'm trying to get in people's heads. It's like when you hear rowing, it's gonna not just get you in a boat. It's gonna change your life forever. It's going to be a better person, and the connections that you get and the lifestyle that you have. All right, last thing. Let's pretend that I'm a recruit. Let's pretend I'm a 6'1", 705, 2K. Why am I going to row at UW? Why am I going to row at Wisconsin?
You will never be challenged more. You will never be supported more. You will never be surrounded by more talented people, including staff and support staff within the athletic department. You will never have the opportunity to get both a fantastic athletic experience, but also a first-class education. And we make sure you can do both. We don't limit what classes or majors you can have. We support whatever you aspire to be. There is no limit to what you can accomplish here. If you want to be on the Olympic team, just look at the 3 women from Wisconsin that are in the mix right now. Anything you want, you can get here with support, and we will help you.
Says the woman who almost ran over the president of the United States.
But I didn't.
But you didn't. BeBe, thank you so much for this. This has been a pleasure. And everyone watching, if you want to learn more about Wisconsin, you know where to go. Thank you for watching or listening. We'll see you later.
Thanks, you guys.